Which 7th level spell is the best 7th level spell? This week I give my rankings of the top 5 7th level spells in 5e. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started today, please consider doing me a huge favor and click the subscribe button below as well as hitting the notification bell so you can be the very first to hear about a video when it goes up. It would help me out a lot, and the moment I can see you all in person again, come to our table at Gen Con, and as thanks I will personally give you a handshake and kiss you right on the mouth. This week I am continuing my spell rankings with 7th level. From now on, I will only be ranking the top 5 of each spell level because the amount of spells at 7th, 8th, and 9th level don't really make for a very exciting top 10 video, considering 10 spells is over a third of the 7th level spells in the game. So the next 3 spell ranking videos may be a little shorter than the previous ones, which I hope you all don't mind because I really just don't want to start populating these videos with fluff just to hit that sexy 10-minute mark. Otherwise, these videos will be exactly the same, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it with number 5. To start things off, in 5th place, I have Plane Shift. Now, the reason I place this spell in 5th is a little different than my usual reasoning, so maybe some of you will be a little annoyed that I put it up here, but either way, I think Plane Shift belongs in the top 5 spells at this level because there is simply not another spell in the game that can change the entire course of your campaign quite like Plane Shift. This is the first time in the game, aside from any DM-inserted story stuff, that you've opened the door to interplanar travel, and that can obviously have some extremely serious and very long-lasting consequences. If we're ranking the strength of spells based on the impact in an overall game, this one absolutely is one of the strongest in 5e because there's not really another spell that can do anything like this. The only reason I don't have this any higher is because it doesn't really offer anything for combat other than maybe an escape, which is great, but still not ideal because, you know, you can go to another plane of existence, which may be an out of the frying pan into the fire sort of situation. Either way, I had to put Plane Shift up here for its impact on the campaign and simply the implications of its availability alone. In 4th place, I have the only damage spell on this list, Crown of Stars. Honestly, choosing a damage spell for 7th level came down to either this or Flame Strike, but after taking a good look at both of the spells, I've decided that this one edges it out ever so slightly. Obviously, in certain situations, Flame Strike may be better, but I think even in those situations, Crown of Stars does similar damage with a bit more flexibility as well. There are a few things I want to point out about the spell that make it absolutely incredible in my eyes. First of all, it doesn't take concentration. If you've watched my channel, you know how huge concentration is for me. Concentration is one of the biggest bottlenecks for a caster's power, and this spell bypassing that bottleneck is amazing considering its damage, and, the second thing I wanted to talk about, firing the bolts only costs a bonus action. Once again, you know I love bonus action spells, especially stuff that wizards can take because wizards have so few bonus action options. Keeping your action open as a caster as well as being able to cast leveled spells as an action, followed by using this as a bonus action, can lead to some pretty insane turns. The final thing I want to acknowledge is the hour-long duration. This is an underrated part of a non-concentration spell in my opinion because it allows you to cast it well ahead of combat and just have it ready. Or cast it during one combat and then have it up again for the next combat if it takes place within an hour. That is super nice and allows you so much flexibility to choose to fire the bolts or save them all for later instead of feeling pressured to fire one off every single turn. The simplest part of the spell is the damage, which is obviously pretty huge. If you fire off every bolt and they all hit, that is 28 d12 points of radiant damage, averaging out to about 182 points of damage total. So yeah, it does a lot of damage, it's flexible, it's concentration free, it is truly everything you want out of a damage spell at this point in the game, which more than justifies a top 5 placement for me. In 3rd place, we have flat out one of my favorite spells in the game and an absolute beast of an illusion spell, Mirage Arcane. Or, as I like to call it, how to build a city in 10 minutes. And I mean that in a very literal sense. You can alter the state of terrain in a square mile as long as you maintain its general shape. I'd assume that essentially means that you can't turn flat land into a mountain or a forest into an ocean, that kind of stuff. But what you can do is add structures where none are present, and it doesn't give you any sort of limit on how many structures or what size they can be other than the square mile bit at the beginning. The amazing thing about this illusion is that it is, for all intents and purposes, absolutely real. Sure, people with true sight can see through the illusion, but even if you can see through the illusion, the rest of the senses remain entirely the same. I just love this spell so much because it offers a lot of options. From a player perspective, it allows you to literally shape the landscape of your battlefield before you fight. It would allow you to craft a home base, a square mile home base in 10 minutes. You can provide shelter for people you're protecting. You can create a maze. You can do literally whatever you want with it, and it simply pops into existence, and it is a real, interactable, tactile illusion. From a DM perspective, this is an excellent way for your big bad to craft their lair right under the PC's noses, among other things. Either way, this spell is a big hitter illusion spell which are few and far between and can literally morph the shape of the game, which I think absolutely justifies a third place finish. And now we get to the top two, which actually managed to remain consistent with my previous spell ranking video that spawned this series in the first place. In second place, we have Force Cage. I said it last video in regards to Irresistible Dance, and I'll say it again here. Spells that don't allow for a saving throw are absolutely game-breaking in a system where bosses rely on automatically succeeding on saves to be threatening in a fight. And this one is even more specific than Irresistible Dance, because the only way for a creature to escape the cage is to magically teleport out by succeeding on a charisma saving throw. So if you're fighting a boss that doesn't have access to magical teleportation, guess what? They can't leave. They are trapped in that box or cage for the duration of the spell, and there isn't a dang thing they can do about it. So, at the very worst, you're fighting a creature who has legendary resistances and magical teleportation, and they use their action on their turn to teleport out of your force cage and maybe have to burn through a legendary resistance to do it successfully. I guess they could potentially use a bonus action if they've got Misty Step or whatever. Either way, it is just as powerful a spell as I thought it was before, and it definitely belongs in the top two at this level because I can see a lot of situations where this spell actually completely shuts down an extremely deadly encounter, like a boss level encounter. And I've seen that happen, so it's not an uncommon happenstance by any means. And still, the reigning champion of 7th level spells, the strongest spell at this level, and one of the strongest spells in 5e D&D, Simulacrum. I will repeat from my original video. What's stronger than one wizard with access to 7th level spells and below? 2 wizards with access to 7th level spells and below. High level casters are some of the strongest characters in the game because the later spells are just incredibly powerful, as we very well know just from this series of videos. So why limit yourself to one action per turn? Hand that magic staff over to your Simulacrum and let them go to town with it. Since their spell slots don't come back, toss your wand of fireballs their way too, and you can just sit back and burn through whatever utility spells you want because you've got your very own life-sized replica of yourself popping off damage spells every single turn. Now, if you really want to break it, get to 18th level. Set your spell mastery spells to Rope Trick and Long Strider, then make a Simulacrum. Change over your spells to whatever you want. I like Shield and Misty Step, and then reap the rewards. 10 extra movement speed for you and everyone in your party, and infinite rope tricks for you when you find yourself in a spot of trouble. And that is just one combo you can abuse with the spell. I'm sure there are infinitely many more because this is just flat out one of the most abusable spells in the game. Maybe even a Simulacrum casting Simulacrum. Eventually you'd get to 1,000,000 Simulacrums making copies of themselves with 1 HP, but still, that would be pretty crazy. Anyway, you can see what I'm talking about. This spell might as well just be called Loophole for how many rulings things it can draw into question. And when a spell starts fudging with the rules of the system, that's when you know it is a very, very powerful one. And Simulacrum fits that bill in spades. Alright, that is my list of the top 5 7th level spells in 5e. Let me know in the comments what you think of the list, if I left any out or misplaced the ones I put in. If you liked this video, please consider clicking the thumbs up button and subscribing to the channel. And as always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.